If you had all the money in the bank that you needed for this thing that you desire, what would your next step be? How would you put yourself out there? What decisions would you make? Because the truth is, it's never about the money. So today's episode is all about what's stopping you from reaching your goals. Now, this may be a fitness goal, might be a career or business goal, maybe it's a relationship goal. Regardless, I want you to think about the thing that you most want to achieve. Okay, get that in mind. And then think about why you haven't yet reached that goal. Now, this is exactly what we asked our community when we sent out a survey recently. And to date, we've had over 300 people fill this out. So we asked, what is the biggest challenge that you face in terms of reaching your desires and your goals? And the response was overwhelming and in two different categories. So the first one was a financial reason, so money issues. And the second one was lack of time. Now, I remember sharing this with my coach, and she and I kind of both turned to each other virtually and said, we both know that time and money aren't the real reasons why people aren't reaching their goals. Now, this might be a statement that shocks you. You might be under the assumption that time and or money are the things that are stopping you from reaching your goals. But today, I want to challenge that. And I want to help you go deeper to understand what it actually is that's stopping you. Because the truth is, you're finding the time and finding the money for lots of other things. Okay? So it can't be that. And if you've listened to any of my teaching, you know that I believe in an abundant world. So we have an abundance of money. We have an abundance of time. Now, does that mean that you're able to recognize that that exists for you? Well, if you're in a state of lack, then probably not, but it does. So today we're going to talk about that. Now, I hope this episode doesn't cause you to never want to fill out one of my surveys again, but I hope it inspires you to look for another solution and look for a way to create the reality that you want, even when it feels like there isn't enough time or isn't enough money or isn't enough of something else. Okay. So as I'm going through this form here, there are a couple other kind of challenges that are facing people from pursuing their dreams. So I'm just going to look at those. So a few people said health issues. Some people said family issues. And then there were a handful of other responses. So for example, knowing how to get clients, how to get there, the support and tools to do it, persistence, momentum, learning how, self-doubt and fear of failure, imposter syndrome, clarity, business structure, putting myself out there, confidence, focused mentorship, clarity on the right steps, inner dialogue, putting myself out there, belief that it's possible, knowing where to start, etc. So a lot of that falls under the category of mindset. And I would guess that most of the challenges that people are facing have to do with mindset. Not lack of financial resources, not finding the time, not family, not health. Okay. And so that's what I want to cover here today. So let's start with the financial resources conversation. So I want you to think about the thing that you most desire. Again, we started off this conversation with that in mind. Bring it back into your mind. Give attention to it. Again, maybe it's changing careers, starting a business, losing weight, getting healthier, finding love. And I want you to ask yourself, what is the challenge that's coming up for you that's stopping you from getting that thing? And for many of you, it might feel like it's money. I know when I first started my business, I was $30,000 in credit card debt and $90,000 in student loan debt. And so I legitimately thought, I don't have the money to start my business, right? It wasn't sitting there in the bank account. And yet I found a way to make it happen. And so that's why I wanted to record this episode for you today, because I don't buy any of the excuses. And one of the things that really helped me get to that place was a really challenging period when I first started my business, which was a period of 54 no's in a row. So 54 people said no to working with me. And what I realized was that the majority of them were giving me the time and the money excuse. They were saying they wanted to work with me, but then in the next breath, they told me all the reasons why they couldn't do it. And initially, I was just saying to them, okay, no problem. Thanks for your time. Have a good day. Bye. But then I realized that wasn't serving me or them. And so what I started to do was go deeper with the conversation and actually get to the root of what was stopping them from moving forward. And 99.9% of the time, it was mindset. And so today, if you're feeling stretched financially, I would love for you to ask yourself a simple question. If you had all the money in the bank that you needed for this thing that you desire, what would your next step be? How would you put yourself out there? What decisions would you make? Because the truth is, it's never about the money. If you look at your life right now, I imagine you have bills that you pay on a regular basis. I imagine you maybe have credit cards, debit cards. There's a way that you could go through and look at your bank statements. I'd love for you to do that once we're done with our episode today. And look at where you are spending your money, because that will tell you what you value in your life. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that there are periods where you might have less time, less money than other times in your life, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that your current reality is your forever reality. And so we want to get into the mindset and the frame of mind of let's make decisions from a place of abundance and desire, not from lack. Okay. And the first step to doing this, like I said, is to have your desire in mind and then think about what the challenge is. And if it's money, we want to look at your actual statements. We want to see where you're spending your money. A lot of people are spending their money on social things. So maybe it's sporting events, maybe it's things like Netflix, maybe it's drinks out with friends, maybe it's going out to eat. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff, but you have to ask yourself, if right now it feels like you don't have enough, is that actually adding value to your life? Or would your money be better spent being put towards the thing that you really desire, the thing that you thought about at the beginning of this conversation? Because I don't believe that you don't have enough. You're finding the money for other things and you're setting those priorities. Okay. Now, I recorded another podcast episode probably about a year ago, and it was essentially around the thought process that if you don't have what you want, you really don't want it. Okay. Now, I know that that's polarizing for a lot of people, especially when I share that on webinars and trainings, because a lot of people think to themselves, well, Emily, I do really want this thing. It just hasn't happened yet. So how can you sit here and tell me that I don't want it bad enough? Now, it might not be that the desire isn't there, but you haven't shifted your priorities to make it a priority. Okay. And that's what happens when we look at our bank statements. We can see, okay, I'm spending money somewhere unnecessarily, somewhere that doesn't actually feel good to me, somewhere that's no longer aligned. And so I want to shift some of that money and put it towards starting my business, put it towards signing up on that dating profile, put it towards further education so that I can step into a new career path, put it towards hiring a nanny so that I'm able to dedicate more time to my purpose and have somebody watch the kids, or put it towards a cleaner so that I'm able to spend more time with the kids. All right. So there's endless possibilities. But when we get into the mindset of not enough, we automatically cut off what those possibilities actually are. And the interesting thing is when you start to look at your bank account, maybe you even see that you have some savings you forgot about. Maybe there's an investment you forgot about. Maybe there's somebody who comes forward and says they'll lend you the money. Once we start to get into the mindset of having the money, then we can tune into the real issue. And 9 times out of 10, like I said, when I was doing those sales calls in the beginning of my business, what came up for people when I essentially helped them find the money and create a plan to bring in the money, or some of them did have savings and other ways of paying right then and there. Once we ticked off the whole money excuse, we actually got to the root of the problem. And most of the time, it was fear and mindset. So again, think about your most abundant self. Imagine you have all the money in the bank. What steps do you take next? And if you're wanting to start a business, the first step might be, well, I'd invest in working with a mentor, somebody to help me step by step build this business. Or maybe you'd hire a designer to build you a website. Now, the interesting thing is when we pull at this thread, it opens up a whole other can of worms because you start to envision yourself taking those steps. And maybe it freaks you out. Maybe you think about putting yourself out there online and you start to have a panic attack. You start to feel anxious. You wonder what people are going to think. You worry about being judged. And it's amazing if you get to that place and have that realization, because then we're actually getting to the root of what's going on. And we recognize it's not about the money. And we see if we really wanted it, we'd have it already. But the thing that's keeping us from the desire is the fear. And so we're making decisions based on fear, and we're using money as the excuse. Okay? Now that's just one example. I want you to really think about your desire. If you had all the money in the bank, is there anything else that would hold you back and stop you from creating that new reality? Okay? Same thing with time. If you're telling me you don't have a lot of time, please do some sort of time study. Track how you're spending your time on a regular basis, because I don't buy it. We are all making decisions based on time and how we spend our time every single day. Are you watching an hour of Netflix? Right? Are you scrolling through your phone? Even if it's 20 minutes a day, that's still 20 minutes a day. Where are you spending your time? Recently, one of my friends in the UK, she posted on Facebook and she said, just letting everyone know, I'm not going to be on here very much. I realized I'm constantly complaining about not having enough time, and yet I'm spending so much time on social media. And that's not actually the thing that matters to me. Okay? Now, we want to look at both types of currency, money currency and time currency. And we want to be respectful of both. A lot of people, when I do money mindset work, a lot of people think that it's about just spending money aimlessly, not worrying about how you're spending your money, and being able to buy whatever you want. But the truth is, I don't feel like that's an actual healthy relationship with money. It's not a respect towards money. What I would love to see is for you to be considerate with how you're spending your money and your time. Okay. And really evaluate where it's going and make sure it's in alignment with what it is that you actually want. Are you spending time with friends or family members that don't light you up? Are you spending time with people who don't actually believe in your vision? And that's one of the reasons why you're not able to create the life that you're craving. That's one of the reasons why your desires haven't yet manifest. So one of the biggest keys to success truly is being self-aware and understanding the decisions that you're making and how they're affecting your results. And then, of course, adjusting accordingly. So let's play that game again. If you had all the time in the world, if you had an extra 5 hours a week, right? And you're saying you want to start a business, or you want to go back to school and change your career, or you want to have more time with the kids and spend less time working, okay? If you had 5 extra hours, what would you do with it? How would you spend your time? Have you actually visualized what that would look like and made a plan? Because that's another piece of the puzzle. If your mind doesn't even know what you would do with the thing, why in the world would you attract the thing? I always say money needs a purpose. That's why I love helping people create desires lists, because it's one of the easiest ways, number one, to get into the vision of the next level version of your life, but number two, to start to add up, tangibly speaking, how much these things are going to cost. So one of my friends, Jada Selner, she has this beautiful book, and I'm looking at it over there. It's called She Builds, and she talks about your enough number, right? Your enough number. So how much is it going to cost you to live your best life? What is the enough number? And this for me is not just like, scratching the surface, barely having enough to get by. Like, what is it going to cost for you to live your best life? What time do you need to live your best life? Actually evaluate it and get clear with yourself and create a healthy relationship with time and money by not wasting it on things that don't actually matter to you. So if we look at your bucket of time and we gift you an additional 5 hours a week, and you're telling me you want to spend more time with the kids, right? How would it actually feel to have those 5 hours? What would you do with them? How would you spend your time? What would that look like? Would it be broken up into one big chunk? Would it be scattered throughout the week? And what comes up for you when you think about that additional amount of time? For a lot of people, especially people who would need to delegate something in order to get that amount of time, fear comes up. We're back to fear. Fear around, oh my goodness, I could not loosen the reins on my business because I don't trust my team to handle things. Fear around, I don't know what I would do with the kids. I don't really know how to have fun anymore. I haven't tapped into that for a long time. Maybe you're saying you want to spend more time with your partner, but when you really think about spending an additional 5 hours with them, you recognize that the relationship has suffered and you don't feel as connected, or maybe you don't have shared interests. So I hope you see what I'm getting at here. When we start to pull at that thread around what's actually, going on beneath the surface and put it in our mind that it's not actually about the money and time, we can get to the root of the problem. And if it really is about the money or the time, once you evaluate your money, your finances, as well as how you're spending your time, I guarantee you're going to be able to find the time or the money to make the thing happen that you want to happen. You might just need to rearrange things a bit. Let me give you an example. One of our amazing presenters in the I Heart My Life membership, just today actually, she was sharing a story of how she decided she didn't want to clean her house anymore. Now, she went to her family, her husband and her daughter, and said, I don't want to clean the house anymore. We either hire somebody or we split up the jobs and do it ourselves, but I don't want to do the whole thing. So her family decided that at that time they couldn't afford to do it. They couldn't afford to outsource it. So they divvied up all the tasks, and it lasted about a week until they all came back to her and said, we don't want to do this either. Let's find the money. So they looked at how they were spending their money, and they realized it was actually more important to them to have the cleaner than to go out to eat an additional time per week. Okay? So when we get clear on our true desires, we get clear on how we're spending our money, we get clear on how we're spending our time, then we can readjust accordingly. Like I said, if it's actually about the money or actually about the time. But most of the time, it's what's beneath the surface of that. So my encouragement for you is to look beneath the surface. We are so quick to use time and money as an excuse. It's easy. We do it all the time. But is there something else going on beneath the surface? Is there a lack of confidence? Is there a lack of belief in yourself? Now, the whole challenge around not having mentors and not knowing how to do it, I feel like that one's complete BS, because we all know of a thing called Google. We could all reach out and ask for the help that we need. But again, is there something else beneath the surface there? Are you scared to even do the research? Are you scared to put yourself out there? Are you scared to say, I need help? Are you scared to invest in a mentor and not actually do the work or not be able to do it? What is it that's beneath the surface? What's the real reason? And I'm sharing this today, and I'm really trying to bring this home for you because I want you to get to the real root cause of why you're not reaching your desires, because only then will you be able to transform. So many people are pushing their dreams and their goals on the back burner, telling themselves, when I have more money, when I have more time, when I find the right mentor. And it never actually happens because that's not the real thing that's holding them back. So like I said, so much of success is about introspection. It's about you being aware of what's actually going on for you. I know in working with a lot of moms over the years, sometimes people use their kids as an excuse. And I'm about to be a mom, and so I can understand how that could happen. But I want you to know that that is not going to support you in reaching your goals. Do not use your kids as an excuse. And by the way, this is not a judgment. I've had moms have huge aha moments on my trainings, realizing they're using their kids as an excuse. But the real reason why they're not moving forward with X, Y, and Z is because they're scared, or they don't feel pretty enough. They don't feel smart enough. They don't know if they can do it. All the things. So get real with yourself. What's the actual reason? If you had all the time in the world, if you had all the money in the world, if the kids were completely taken care of and you were free to do whatever you want. If, let's look at some of the other, if the health issues didn't exist, if the family issues didn't exist, what would you be doing right now? And then start to put a plan in place. And if you aren't aware of the thing that's actually holding you back at this point in this step-by-step process, trust me, as you start taking action, you will become crystal clear on what the thing is. Because you'll move forward with buying the domain name. You'll move forward with setting up your dating profile. And all the fears and doubts and insecurities will come flooding to the surface. And you'll see what the real reason is why you haven't moved forward. Because I'm going to say this, I've said it many, many times on this show. It's very easy to have a big dream that's out there on your vision board, but it's much harder to be taking action towards it right away, starting today. Anyone can be a dreamer. Anyone can say they're going to do something 10 years, 20 years from now, even, a year from now, 10 weeks. But are you actually taking action? And there's a beautiful quote from Marie Forleo. She says, clarity comes from engagement, not from thinking about it. So we can self-analyze until we're blue in the face, and it's great to have self-awareness, but action is going to give you even more clarity, okay? So I challenge you, move forward with the desire, and you'll become crystal clear about what it is that's been holding you back all these years. And then the next step of this is don't let it hold you back. I know that sounds so simple, but there are people who are busting through their blocks every single day. There are people who are finding the time, finding the money, not using their family history as an excuse, putting themselves out there even when they don't feel confident. All the things that you want are available for you, but it's going to take you putting yourself out there and moving past all this programming that's stopping you from getting what it is that you actually want, okay? Now, this is how I get myself into desire, or not get myself into desire. This is how I tune into my truest desires on a regular basis. If my mind ever tells me, oh, you don't have the money, you don't have the time, it's not possible for you. Well, I eradicate all of those limiting beliefs, all those feelings of lack. And I ask myself, okay, if I was 100% confident that this would work out, what would I do? What steps would I take? And then I take those steps. I don't allow myself to stop. Of course, it'd be easier to stop. Of course, it'd be easy to use money as the excuse. But from the get-go of building my business and transforming my life, I didn't allow that to stop me. I believed I could find the money. I believed the money was available for me. There's a podcast episode that I did all about the one quote that I really live my life based on. I encourage you to go listen to that because it's all about desire and it's all about eradicating any sort of excuse that's stopping you from getting the thing that you want, okay? And I hope that this is an empowering conversation for you because what I'm telling you is that you can have everything that you want. We just need to get rid of all the stuff that's stopping you from getting it up until this point. So again, the lack of dreams, the confidence in yourself, the fact that you're a caregiver to your family, being held back by the belief that you don't really deserve it, mental health issues, motivation issues, confidence, knowing how to actually execute on your dreams, meeting your man or woman. These are all things that people filled out on this form. And I'm so grateful for this because it helps me to create content and to share information like this. Okay? So it's not your fault up until this point. It's just your mind. But that can be transformed. There's something called neuroplasticity, which means we can actually rewire our brain. That's what's available for you today. But we want to understand what is actually going on beneath the surface and stop allowing the excuses to keep us from the truth and, of course, keep us from our desires. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to share with you today. I pulled a card for us for the purposes of this conversation. It's from a beautiful book, card deck, I should say, the Inner Compass cards. I had the author and creator, Nail Van Lierop, on the podcast a little bit ago. You can look up that episode. It was amazing. We actually pulled a card for the community, and I pulled one ahead of our conversation, and she pulled one live on the line, and it was the exact same card, which was super powerful. So we'll link this card deck below in the show notes as well. So the card I pulled for the purposes of our conversation for today is practice. It says, integrating new things in your life can be tricky. It takes at least 40 days to get rid of a bad habit or incorporate a new pattern. Right now, is there something in your life that you want to change, remove, or introduce into your daily routine? Do you want to meditate? Ease on your planning. Move away from your phone or computer. Every integration calls for practice, and practice comes from trial. Just do it. This card asks you to really put your money where your mouth is. Focus is essential here. Multitasking often gets highly overrated. Don't spread yourself too thin. You are better off handling one thing well than several things in halves. If your heart tells you you have practiced enough, then you can test it. You do so by no longer putting any effort into it. As new things flow smoothly and effortlessly in your life, it means you've mastered them. This is what integration is all about. And I wanted to share this with you today because I think it's such a beautiful reminder that no one's asking you to reach the finish line in 2 seconds or even a year. No one's asking you to move past all your mindset blocks just from this one episode. But we are asking you to practice, to put yourself out there, to take one step and then the next and then the next, okay? Because right now, the excuses, which is essentially what's going on, the excuses are keeping you from everything that you want, okay? And you're saying you want more time, you're saying you want more money, but it's available to you right now. So practice these steps, start taking action, continue to be aware of what could hold you back or what is holding you back, because that's just part of being human. Our mind is always going to try and stop us. No one's asking you to get it perfect the first time around, but like I said, I am asking you to start taking action and stop using your excuses as the excuse to not have the life that you are craving. All right? I'll talk to you next time.